Today, September 27th, with the first quarter moon in Sagittarius, the universe is opening a portal of optimism, freedom, and spiritual reconnection in relationships. Warning, but pay attention. This lightness that is arriving is not random. It comes after a long period of pain, isolation, and deep endings. This is the divine gift for those who have remained faithful to the spiritual process. Milky Way, and if you are watching this video now, it's because you have been prepared to experience something higher. A soul experience that may reveal itself through a new love, a reunion with someone tied to your destiny, or even a journey that will change everything. Stay with me until the end, because there, you will understand why God is allowing lightness to touch your heart again, right now. You say you want love that feels like freedom, yet every time it knocks, you hesitate. There's a part of you still chained to the emotional routines you swore you'd left behind. The crescent moon in Sagittarius reveals this contradiction, a longing for expansion held back by subconscious loyalties. You've outgrown the patterns, but they still whisper in your decisions. This isn't resistance, it's a call to awaken. Maybe you once gave too much, or loved someone who made sacrifice feel like survival. And now, every new beginning is filtered through the past's unspoken warnings. You crave spontaneity, but cling to certainty. You dream of romance, but fear its unpredictability. Sagittarius doesn't offer comfort, it offers truth. And this truth starts with asking, who are you loving when you choose safety over self? This is not about blaming yourself. It's about naming the invisible forces still driving your choices. The unhealed promises, the outdated definitions of what love should be, the fear that being fully seen will lead to abandonment. The moon's fire rises not to burn you, but to burn through the mask, until the version of love you hold matches the version of self you're becoming. You don't need to be perfect to deserve a new chapter. You just need to stop dragging old stories into blank pages. This moment asks, can you love with your whole being, not just the parts you believe are acceptable? It isn't about waiting for the right person. It's about becoming emotionally honest enough to receive them. And that journey begins with release. You say you're seeking a new kind of love, but the truth is, some part of you still fears what that might awaken. Sagittarius, ruled by expansion, exposes not only what excites, but what restricts. The desire for freedom clashes with the comfort of patterns already known. There's a silent war between who you've been and who you feel called to become. And in this space of emotional contradiction, transformation is quietly negotiated. There are times when you laugh too quickly, or silence a need to protect your independence. It's not that you don't want deep love. It's that a part of you still believes love demands sacrifice. You remember how it felt to lose yourself, to adapt too much, to shrink your truth. So you tread lightly now, even in moments that crave intensity. But Sagittarius energy doesn't accept half measures. It demands your truth in full. This lunar phase amplifies your emotional crossroads. Are you still performing old roles in new settings, wearing a brave face while hiding quiet hesitation? Or are you willing to be completely seen, messy, radiant, unfinished, by someone who might hold space for all of it? The tension you feel isn't a sign of failure. It's the birth cry of your next version, daring to love again without losing itself. Let this moment be your portal. Not a decision made in haste, but a shift born from honest self-inquiry. The more honest you are about your fears, the more space you give to the kind of love that expands, not confines. This is the sacred tension of Sagittarius. To move forward, you must first admit what still anchors you. And then, with courage, release it. You thought you had it figured out. A connection that seemed safe, a dynamic that followed the rules. But suddenly it shifted. What felt like security began to weigh like repetition, and the spark of growth dulled into habit. Sagittarius energy doesn't allow for complacency. It shines a light on illusions we mistook for truth. This moment isn't about failure. It's a cosmic checkpoint, asking, are you really evolving, or just staying busy inside the familiar? There's a specific ache that comes when the love you built no longer expands you. You stayed because it made sense, because it was calm, because there was no obvious harm. But now, the fire that once warmed you feels dim. And in that subtle dimness, your spirit starts to ask for more. Not out of ingratitude, but because deep within, something knows that love should inspire, not just maintain. This transit uncovers where comfort has turned into stagnation, where affection has become routine. You're not wrong for wanting more. Laughter that surprises you, connection that challenges, love that invites motion. Sagittarius calls for the courage to leave the known path, not to destroy what was, but to honor what might yet be. And in that leap, discover that love can be both stable and expansive, if you dare. Let yourself grieve the idea that staying always means loyalty. Sometimes, true loyalty is to your own evolution. This lunar invitation doesn't demand rash decisions, only honest reflection. Look closely. Is the love you live the love you once dreamed? Or has the dream changed, and your heart been waiting for permission to follow? It started with a plan. The kind of story you thought would lead to something lasting. Routines, shared dreams, maybe a future mapped out in quiet agreements. But when Sagittarius ascends, it stirs a different kind of rhythm, one that doesn't follow scripts. This transit isn't here to ruin what was. It's here to ask, what if the plan you were following was too small for the soul you've become? The challenge now is subtle. It's not about loud endings or dramatic fights. It's the quiet sense that you're outgrowing a version of love you once needed. That what once felt expansive now feels narrow. And maybe, just maybe, what you called stability was your fear dressed in logic. Because growth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it arrives as disillusionment, a necessary rupture so that something more aligned can begin. There's no shame in waking up and realizing that what once fit no longer does. The real question is, can you honor that realization without guilt? Sagittarius isn't cruel. It's honest. And it demands truth not just from the other, but from yourself. If you keep rehearsing a love that no longer matches your essence, you're not preserving it. You're postponing your own liberation. This phase wants you to explore new versions of intimacy. Ones that breathe, expand, challenge, and thrill. Love that grows with you, not despite you. Don't be afraid to rewrite your map. The path you're on might not be wrong. It just might be finished. And your heart, brave as ever, is ready for the next chapter it came here to live. There's a version of you that always smiles at the right moment, agrees to avoid conflict, and adapts to whatever shape the other person needs. This version is polite, functional, and exhausted. Under the influence of the crescent moon in Sagittarius, that inner fatigue begins to surface. Not through drama, but through restlessness. The quiet ache of knowing that connection built on performance will never nourish your truth. Sagittarius doesn't ask for perfection, it demands presence. This energy invites you to step out from behind the polished mask and let your soul speak. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will stay. But those who are meant for your path will never need you to shrink. They will recognize the spark behind your words, the fire in your laughter, and the sacred defiance in your need to be real. To live love fully, you must risk being misunderstood. And yes, vulnerability is a gamble. But pretending is a slow erosion of spirit, of identity, of joy. This lunar phase brings clarity. The cost of being loved for a version of you that isn't real is simply too high. You weren't made to be edited. You were made to be felt, raw, expressive, beautifully incomplete. So let it begin with a single act of honesty. Say what you mean. Ask for what you want. Stand in what you feel. Sagittarius rewards bravery, not the armor kind, but the soul-deep kind that chooses truth over performance. Your next chapter in love depends not on who accepts you, but on how boldly you accept yourself. The moment you stopped speaking your truth was the moment silence began to feel safer than connection. Somewhere along the way, you learned that authenticity could cost you affection, approval, the illusion of peace. And so, piece by piece, you built a version of yourself you hoped would be easier to love. But Sagittarius, in its wild lunar rhythm, does not bless what is inauthentic. It only amplifies what is aching to be seen. This is a phase where masks begin to itch and roles become unbearable. If you're tired, it's not just from giving too much. It's from hiding too much. Love isn't meant to be a stage where you perform. It's a field where you grow. And no growth can happen in soil that isn't honest. The crescent moon lights up the places where you've traded your voice for validation, your passion for politeness, your soul for survival. Now, the invitation is clear. Let the real you come forward, not just in silence or solitude, but in the presence of another. This is not about dramatic declarations or reckless exposure. It's about soft rebellion, saying this is who I am without apology. Let the tension rise. Let the air crackle with truth. There is no freedom in relationships without the courage to be fully known. Because in the end, love that demands a performance will always leave you lonely. But love that meets you in your truth, wild, tender, messy, becomes a sanctuary. The kind of bond Sagittarian skies write stories about. So let this be the chapter where your soul stops whispering and finally speaks aloud, even if your voice trembles. There was a time when you gave too much. You bent, you silenced, you shrank, not out of weakness, but out of love misdirected. You confused compromise with self-erasure and presence with sacrifice. Under this Sagittarian sky, however, the tides shift. This is not just another lunar phase. It is a cosmic reckoning. The return to yourself begins when you recognize what part of you was lost in someone else's story. Sagittario, com sua flecha apuntado para horizontes mais amplos. Neo permite que você continue carregando culpas que neo te pertencem. A energia agora pulsa para libertaco e resgate. Talvez você tenha desistido de sonhos por alguém que neo via você por completo. Talvez tenha se adaptado tanto que esqueço como era ser inteiro. Mas esse ciclo te convida a reunir os pedicos que você deixou em outros lugares e reintegrá-los com coragem. This is not about blame or bitterness. It's about reclamation. The part of you that once hesitated to speak now learns to roar. The dreams you archived now start to breathe again. You don't need to rewrite the past. Only choose not to repeat it. Relationships that ask for your silence are not love, they are negotiation. And you've negotiated enough of your essence. Let the fire of this moon burn through false peace. Let it light the path back to your own heart. You're not broken. You're returning. You're not too much. You're remembering. And when you do, when you walk into love as your full, dignified self, the universe does not hesitate. It responds in kind, with reflections of love that match your new standard. You've worn silence like armor, thinking it would protect the parts of you no one ever asked to know. You've smiled at the right moments, held space for others while abandoning your own. But now, with Sagittario illuminando o su, there's no more space to hide from your truth. This is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. What once was self-abandonment now becomes the threshold for self-recovery. You are allowed to want more honesty, more presence, more joy. Not because you're ungrateful for the love you once received, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that accepted less. This lunar fire does not burn to destroy, but to cleanse. It clears the space so you can stand, not where others need you to be, but where you truly belong. Reintegraco neo e sobre voltar ao antigo, e sobre voltar si. When you remember what it feels like to be aligned, to speak your truth, to want without shame, something shifts. You stop settling for love that only half sees you. You stop romanticizing the roles where your light had to dim to maintain connection. Real redemption is not found in apologies, but in the bold act of becoming whole again. It's the gentle defiance of reclaiming your voice without permission. This Sagittarian phase is not asking you to prove anything to anyone. It simply asks, are you ready to return home to yourself? Not with guilt, not with regret, but with reverence? Because once you do, you no longer attract people who require you to fracture. You draw in those who recognize your fire and dare to burn beside it. There are endings that don't announce themselves. They don't slam doors or echo through tears. They simply fade, like light at the edge of evening. And yet, within that quiet fading, something stirs. The moon in Sagittarius points the arrow forward, but only after you've truly released what no longer walks with you. That person, that bond, that illusion of connection, it's served, but it's done. Not all love is meant to last. Some are meant to launch you. You might feel a strange peace, almost weightless, as if something heavy left your chest overnight. It wasn't just them you released. It was the version of you that clung to what felt safe. This phase is not about mourning a romantic chapter. It's about stepping into the love that finally matches your truth. Sagittarius doesn't offer comfort zones. It offers flight paths, and only those with honest hearts can follow them. You've grown. You've outloved the roles where you had to shrink to be chosen. What you seek now isn't just intimacy, it's meaning. A relationship where your visions align, where your soul expands in the presence of another, not contracts. This isn't fantasy. It's spiritual maturity, the kind that turns solitude into sovereignty and chemistry into calling. You're not asking for someone to complete you. You're calling in someone to walk beside your becoming. So ask yourself gently, are you still tethered to old ghosts, or are you clearing the space for what's next? The answer won't come through logic. It will come through movement. In the courage to travel, to say yes to the unexpected, to meet the unfamiliar with a heart wide open. Love, in this cycle, isn't about comfort. It's about elevation. You may have called it love, but deep down, it was a transaction of fears. A need for belonging wrapped in routines, a loyalty to a version of yourself that no longer exists. And now, something in you is ready to break free, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence. Sagittarius doesn't offer shallow thrills. It offers purpose disguised as passion, a chance to finally feel aligned, not just attached. This new phase is less about finding someone and more about being someone who is found. Someone who doesn't chase, but attracts. Who no longer settles for half-hearted partnerships, but magnetizes depth through clarity. Your soul doesn't crave romance, it craves resonance. And sometimes, that requires walking away from what was almost enough to create space for what truly is. This journey may not look like love at first. It may look like solitude or adventure or a plane ticket to somewhere unknown. But underneath each experience is a deeper alignment unfolding, a rewilding of your capacity to connect from a place of truth, not lack. This is where real intimacy begins, not in promises, but in presence, not in possession, but in shared expansion. So now the question isn't whether love is coming. It is. The question is, will you be fully yourself when it arrives? Or will you be wearing the remnants of who you had to be to survive the last chapter? This moon invites you to choose, not the path of least resistance, but the one of most resonance. The kind of love that sets fire to the script and writes a new one, with both of you as co-authors.